and welcome to the Golden Hour and the Manifest to Live Life Golden podcast and YouTube show. I'm Golden Duffy, your host, and I have a very special episode for you today. It's been a long time. I think it's been about a year since I had a guest join me, but I met this young man and I was so impressed by what he's doing, and it has incredibly affected my life, what he is doing. So I wanted him to come on as an expert to share the amazing things that he is doing to make this world a better place. So this is all about mushrooms, how mushrooms influence the way we think, the way they influence the way our bodies respond, and how they enhance the health that we're living. And we're going to get deep into the science. I think this person is probably the most knowledgeable person I've ever met in the mushroom field. And he got really excited after watching the movie Fantastic Fungi, which I have shared with all of you multiple times that you need to watch that movie. There's another one called Change Your Brain, and why we need to really look and investigate into plant medicine and get away from the medical issues that we're having by constantly reaching for medicine and all the side effects that come with medicine. There's no side effects with using mushrooms, and it's creating a new world for us all. So I would like you to help me welcome Nick Hoyt. Welcome, Nick.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I hope I did that justice. I think we can dive a little more into your history and what you found as far as why it's smart to do plant medicine and what the industry is doing, what you're creating. Because I feel like you're at the front of this. There's like a big wave comes when we get knowledge about something and expertise in something. And I feel like you're in front of the wave. So I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you again. It's been awesome meeting you and your family. I feel like we hit it off like
immediately.
Strong. Yeah. It was good magnets. And I think part of that is because the mushrooms are helping move us in that direction.
Yes. Yeah. Talk about that a little bit, like the frequency, I'm really into frequency talk. I'm really into energy talk.
Yeah.
And talk about the frequency of a mushroom and what that does when it kind of hits the neural pathways and things like that.
Yes. So lion's mane specifically, that one's really good for the brain and creating new neural pathways in the brain. So new ways of thinking, new behavioral patterns. It has been shown to increase memory and focus. And that's because there's compounds in that particular mushroom that are not found anywhere else in nature that they've identified. And these compounds stimulate nerve cell growth. They stimulate what's called brain-derived neural growth factor, which is very rare in most foods. You can do certain lifestyle changes to stimulate this BDNF. This is really important as we age. It increases our attention span and, like I said, connects neural pathways. It's also sometimes considered like, if you look it up, it's like the hunter's brain or like the flow state. You can kind of activate this framework and get into a deep meditation during a task or an activity. And you're tuned in, you're locked in. There's a high vibration there where you're tapping into the environment. And we have a lot of people that we worked with the past 5 years since we've been doing, our own. We started as own personal trials, and then we've had like friends and family to try this out, and then we started a business, and then we've been getting a lot of anecdotal evidence, and all this is backed up with empirical data, with science. Some of the top research universities around the world are studying this stuff. Lion's mane's become a massive trending word, and also mushroom. It's in some top beverages and in teas and powders for coffee. So people make capsules out of it and tinctures. Yeah, even dog treats. So it turns out that even dogs respond really well to lion's mane. And,
what does it do for dogs?
It helps with their gut health. And dogs are super gut dependent. So their systems are much more sensitive to what they eat. And a lot of times when you're trying to heal a dog, you look to change its diet right away. Mm-hmm. And as the dogs age, their their nerves become less strong and pliable. So they
Okay.
start down, and lion's mane helps to mitigate that breakdown. So,
Wow.
so there's this, it's kind of like a cable that runs in between our brains,
Hmm.
the neural pathways, if you will. Some science calls it like dendrites, so like these actual like antennas that come out, and so eventually they'll actually like reach each other and touch each other.
Yep.
And that's when you make this like that's like the explanation of an aha moment is like
Yep.
when you have this new neural like connection.
Yep.
And so what lion's mane, the compounds in lion's mane, what they do is they strengthen the neural network. They strengthen that cable. They add more insulation to the cable. So if we're talking about electricity or
Yep.
frequency,
Yep.
and we are talking about that electricity going through a cable or a conduit. And the
Okay.
stronger the cable, the more insulation it has, the more protective layering the cable has, the stronger the connection, the quicker the connection can be made across that barrier. And the quicker the connection is made, then you keep making those connections. So you start forming habits and patterns.
Yep.
So that's how you can create new lifestyle changes with lion's mane, by activating and strengthening these cables, or these what's the scientific term is called the myelin sheath,
Okay.
myelin.
Okay. Wow.
Yep.
That's really
Yep.
cool. All
So
right. So I want to just go back to the flow state because I don't think that I've ever actually discussed the flow state on this show. So when you get into flow state, my understanding of flow state when it happens to me is basically I lose track of time, right? Like
yep.
I'm in a creative space. I lose track of time and I'm
Yes.
amazed. It feels like 10 minutes went by and 3 hours went by, right?
Hmm.
So when you're taking mushrooms, it's almost like if you were to think about like a cluttered space, right? Like we can't really think straight when we're in a cluttered space, right? I always say your
Hmm.
home is a reflection of your mind. So if your home is cluttered and you've got a lot of stuff going on, it's hard to think straight. So it's kind of like it moves the clutter out of the way so that you can get into that state and be more creative and lose track of time, which actually, interestingly, I've heard recently that when you lose track of time, you stop the aging process. So, like, the
Oh,
more you can be in
fascinating.
the state,
That's
the
a really
more,
cool connection. Yeah, that makes
isn't
sense, right? Because like,
it?
yeah,
Yeah,
living
so
in the present moment.
anti-aging, right? Anti-aging for,
Yeah,
your outer, but also inner.
yeah, yeah. Because when you're losing track of time, you're living in the present moment. You're not worried about what's in front or what's behind. You're just right here, right now.
Yep. And that's what ages us, right? What ages us is like the worry about the future. It's
Yeah, the stress.
the overload of our mental capacity, right? Like that's what basically is deteriorating our brains, right? So
Yes.
we want to do, and I'm on all the things. So just so everybody knows, I'm taking all of Nick's products because I really believe in this and I've done enough study, even to the point where I love this. When you believe something, right? You're taking something every day. Every day I'm taking something with the intention of keeping my brain healthy. So that signal that I'm sending to the stuff that I'm taking up levels it even more.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. The intention.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into because Alzheimer's is a big thing, and a lot of my friends are going through this with their parents. And basically, what's happening is you've got a generation of people that cannot live their life freely, happily, joyfully because now they're taking care of their parents who are basically acting like toddlers, right?
Hmm.
So when it comes to Alzheimer's, as far as someone who already has it, can you speak to, evidence that you have or things that you've seen where it could actually improve someone? Even somebody I know, someone who was recently diagnosed,
Hmm.
and maybe what the protocol could be for that. And I'm going to put up your website so people can come to you and ask questions about that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. It has been shown to mitigate the symptoms, not reverse symptoms, but
Okay.
mitigate the deterioration. And again, going back to that sheath, the neural network, so strengthening the cables, and so you're helping prevent the breakdown of those cables, because
Right.
that's part of what's happening. And there's a lot of lifestyle choices that you can help make,
Yeah.
or that you can start that or get back to that will help mitigate those symptoms.
Do you know what that is? Can you share some of those? I think that's really
Yeah. It's so from what I've read, I really like Zach Bush. I don't
okay.
know if you've heard of him.
Huh.
He was he's a triple board certified MD who was practicing high level medicine and opened up a clinic for a lot of different demographics, and was having mixed results, and like just but this just great heart, like super
Yeah.
good guy. And he started like getting into more of this connection with nature,
Mm-hmm.
and more connection with like real foods, like what we're putting into our bodies and what we're surrounding ourselves with,
Yeah.
whether that be technology or just environmental stress. And that's actually wreaking more havoc than
Yeah.
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 And there's no Western medicine answers for these mental health maladies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he which is a huge, so like if your head's not right, like you talked about, right? Like if your head's not right, your body's not right,
No.
then your spirit's not right.
Right.
So everything's connected.
Yep.
And so that was his search, and he wanted to find connection and figure out what does it take to get the body and the mind and the spirit back to a flow state or a homeostasis, a balance,
Yeah.
where we don't have to, or we're not, these symptoms aren't happening
Yep.
because we're living in this present moment and
Yeah.
we're appreciating things. And he found that getting back into nature was a huge stimulation to some of this nerve growth in the
Yeah.
brain,
Yep.
and some of the pain relief in the body, because
Wow.
and this goes back to some of the grounding stuff, like walking around barefoot,
Yep.
just looking up at trees, seeing
Yep.
there's a big a lot of data on from Huberman. I don't know if you like him a
Yes.
lot.
You like this one. Yep.
Yeah, he's great. And then Michael Easter is another author that I like.
Yep.
He wrote this awesome book called The Comfort Crisis
Okay.
and Scarcity Brain. Highly recommend those for your listeners.
Great.
And they talk about looking at contour lines. So like these waves in nature, like mountains or trees, and how that actually stimulates dopamine and serotonin in the brain. And it can help relax the eyes and stimulate the senses. So you get more in tune with nature, with your body, you get this connection back.
Yeah.
So those are some of the lifestyle choices that I like to drive home in my life. And then I've seen a lot of, like, just talking to people about that. At the farmer's market, we get, maybe 100, 200 people every weekend that come through, and I get to talk to them one-on-one, sometimes in groups. And then we have our retail storefront. We get, a dozen or so people through there every week. And so I've been able to communicate with a lot of people. And because I'm in the mushroom world, I get a lot of eco and health conscious people.
Sure.
And so we just trade information, I'm like, oh yeah, I went to this place. I had a great release. I had a great meditation, and when I say meditation, it can be something as simple as just going to some place that's quiet and closing your eyes.
Right. 100%.
You don't you can follow a protocol, but you can also just go to some place and nature will do that for you.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So my father-in-law was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia and he was with us for 2 months in somewhat the beginning of his diagnosis. And what I noticed was when he sat and watched TV all day, because I have a life and I had to do things. I was actually editing a book. So he would just sit there while I was editing and he would get dumb. He would get dumber. He would he just lost his capacity to communicate. The days that I took him out, we would go to this really nice nature park and, just sit and feed the birds and he was a completely different person.
Right.
So I highly agree with you about nature. And I've actually promoted the Earthing movie on my show because I believe so much in grounding. And I realized I used to hang out with my friends every Friday and we would go to the beach.
Hmm.
And I realized on Fridays I had no pain. And I thought that it was because I was hanging out with them and we were having a good time and I was distracted, right? You're in a high frequency, you're laughing,
Yeah,
you're
that's part of
distracted.
it for sure.
But then I realized like my feet are in the sand for like 2 or 3 hours.
Yep.
So I am a huge proponent of grounding and nature. A couple of my kids have gone through some serious mental anguish and depression. And I would take them out and lay on a blanket under a tree. And it was
Yes.
like, it was the only time that they ever felt peace, where they
Mhm.
felt like their depression wasn't so overwhelming that they could
Yeah.
actually kind of let go. So I'm totally agree with you on the earthing thing. And just
Right.
getting outside.
Yeah.
90% of our time now is spent inside. I'm like, that's bonkers. And even for
Yes.
people in California, I work in an office. We're in the office all day. Luckily, I can see the outside. I have a beautiful view, but it's still like I walk outside and I'm like, I need more nature. Like I can
Yeah.
just feel it. Like my skin almost crawls.
Yeah. Well, we're not meant to
Yeah.
be in these boxes, right? We're not designed,
No.
our bodies are not designed to be in square boxes. We're meant to be,
Yeah.
it goes back to the contour lines, like these different shapes, textures, dimensions, layers,
Yep.
distances, and our bodies are designed to move. So something
Right.
simple as walking, just getting out. And if you're where we are in Phoenix, it's a little bit hard, challenging to walk during the summertime, but
Yeah.
you just get up a little earlier, or you stay a little later and you do it when it's 8 or 9 in the
Yeah.
evening. So
And it's
um,
beautiful actually at 8 or 9 there. I love it.
yeah, and being in nature, like you said, it can be as simple as something as going to a park and laying under a tree.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be this like, oh, I have to go to a national park or I have to go on a hike, or no, it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah.
It can be something as
No.
simple as just taking a walk around the neighborhood if
Yep.
you're in if the climate allows for it. And then if it doesn't, then just finding a window of time where it does and then prioritizing that. Because if we
Yeah.
prioritize things, we will do them. If you put it on your calendar, then you're more likely to do it.
Yep. Yeah. If you actually think that it's important and it's, part of what makes you a better human being, and releases stress because we all have the stress and the work and the family and all of that. And it's like if we can just release a little stress by giving
Right,
ourselves a break.
right. And the cortisol, that's the thing. Like you were saying, like your father-in-law is sitting in front of the TV and the TV's pumping all this cortisol. And it's a little bit of dopamine, a little bit of serotonin, a little bit of cortisol, a little bit of
Yep.
norepinephrine, adrenaline, and then a little bit more cortisol. So you're just tricking the brain. And man, the media has developed certain patterns of images and sounds to
Yeah.
stimulate certain hormones in our bodies. So you can call it
Right.
programming, which TV used to be called programming, right? When you were in school, they used to call it
That's true.
programming. Oh,
Yep.
we're gonna watch a program. So
That's
we're
so
literally
true.
programming our brains. We're rewiring our brains watching television. And
Wow. Think of that. That's wild. Yeah. So as a young person, I'll say,
yeah,
why would someone, because like I'm thinking about it, and of course, as you get into like your 50s and your 60s, especially if you have a parent that's gone through Alzheimer's. I had a grandmother who I think she was in her 70s. She was alone all the time. That was definitely part of the
right.
issue. She lived in a trailer park. We lived far from her. And so she was alone. Her friends had died, alone all day long, and she just deteriorated, right?
Yes.
And so when you get a little bit older, you start thinking about these things and you're
Right.
like, well, I don't want to go through that. I don't want that to happen to me. So then you're kind of in problem mode because you're like, I want to avoid that. So
Hmm.
talk a little bit about being in solution mode and why someone would want to pretty much start taking these things immediately. Like, is it valuable for somebody in their 20s or 30s to start lion's mane versus like, waiting until you start, like now we call it the files. Like it just takes me a little longer to go through the files,
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
which I don't love, like when you can't, or I have friends where we'll be on the phone and they can't find a word, it's like, and then they're like, oh my gosh. So then they're sending the signal of, I'm losing my mind, right?
yeah.
I'm losing my mind. I can't
Right.
remember things.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the other part of it is like we can't be too hard on ourselves. And sometimes, I mean, our bodies, our brains are designed to forget things. We can't remember everything.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would
We're
just
on
overload.
overload.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
So
saying. And that's what I tell people all the time. I'm like, you're not losing your mind. You're just on overload. You have too much to handle in here, you know?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
world that we're living in. The Western society is programmed us to be constantly stimulated and by
Yeah.
materialist things. And we used to be
Yep.
stimulated by natural things. So
Yep.
there's a
Yeah.
transition there. Um, uh, so
But yeah, I
for
was like, why
for
would,
young people,
yeah, would
it's
someone,
I think
yep.
it's really I think it's even more important because as young people, we're even more stimulated. We're in our phones
Yep.
more. We grew
Yep.
up with technology. There is a certain trend in some of the technology now, like Apple, for example, on their phones, and I think it's on Androids as well, where you can set a timer for how long you use a certain app, like a social media app. It'll just
Yep.
be like, okay, cool, like no more, and just
You
instituting
just
things
gotta,
like
you gotta
that. Well,
listen to it. You gotta listen to
well, yeah,
it.
yeah, that's the other part, right? You can lead a horse to water.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but I can tell you from personal experience that it's helped me. I've started using lion's mane in it's like 2019,
Yep.
2018. Like we started really getting into that, and
Yep.
it was really big. I think I remember hearing a podcast with Paul Stamets and Joe Rogan, and
Yep.
then there was the book that came out, How to Change Your Mind, in 2019. That was
Okay.
revolutionary, kind of
Is
like
Paul's like the original guy?
yeah, he's
Is
like we
he?
call him the Godfather of mushrooms.
Okay. Yeah. He's the one
He
that did the movie, right?
yeah he was a big component of the movie, and he wrote this amazing book called The Mushroom Cultivator. He actually co-authored
Okay.
it. Funny story
Okay.
there, but yeah, and that was in the 70s, I think, in the late 70s. It's this
Oh,
blue book.
really?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
know.
yeah. That's yeah, exactly. That's how long this guy's been doing it, right? So
Oh,
he's
that's
like,
wild.
yeah, he's paved the way for a lot of us, and we, us as a business and a culture of mushroom enthusiasts owe him a lot of gratitude.
Yeah.
And I always take some time to drop his name because I'm super thankful for all the work that he's done, because we are all standing on the shoulders of giants. This is not something that we
Yeah.
discovered, and it's not necessarily
Yeah.
something that Paul discovered either. I mean, this is all research that he took and expanded on in Western society. Mushrooms have been
Yeah.
huge in Eastern European culture for thousands of years. They've been
Yeah.
huge
Yep.
in Asian cultures for thousands of years. They've been huge in
Yep.
South American cultures and Central American cultures for thousands of years. So
Okay.
mushrooms are not anything new, but as far as the Western healthcare system is concerned, it is very new. And
Yeah.
that's part of what we're doing as a company and as a culture, is trying to get that back into the medicine, the medical lexicon, the verbiage,
Yeah.
and start to put more of this stuff out there. And that's why these universities are important, because they're helping stimulate from a top-down perspective from these medical professionals and these psychiatrists, these therapists, doctors. These people are also, they're reading the research. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, I know how to read a peer-reviewed paper. Okay, cool. Like,
Yeah.
and that's how they gauge credibility, right? And then us on the lower level, the grassroots level, we gauge credibility from anecdotal research, so feedback. Talking to people about it, having stories and different experiences from personal, and it is so it's so important, because like I go back to, there are compounds found in mushrooms that are not found anywhere else in nature, and they just so
That's why.
happen to interact with our body. So we
Yeah.
have receptors built and designed to receive these compounds.
Yeah.
So that's like, that in itself is a whole mind-blowing thing, because of all the
Right.
different things in the diet and that we can eat and put into our bodies. And then we have these mushrooms that happen to be kind of aliens in a way. Like they are not in the animal kingdom, they're not in the human kingdom. They're their own class of biology, and
Yeah.
science is still trying to figure out what's really going on here. We still don't know
Yeah.
how these mushrooms create the compounds that they do, that are so novel. And
Yeah.
and it's almost like we were born to eat mushrooms. It was
Yes.
part of our design. It's part of our ultimate design to receive these mushrooms. They trip something in our brains and our bodies and even our spirits that open us up to the greater cosmos, if you will, the creator, and allow us to vibrate at a higher frequency so that we can have a greater impact on this world while we're here.
Yes, and we can connect to that which is beyond this illusion. I actually saw something on Instagram recently, and I can't really say the whole thing, but it was basically like we share the same consciousness with mushrooms. And I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. Like if we're, if we're going back into non-physical energy and we connect with something that's part of like what grows so much of our earth, then it makes sense that we have this connection. And then when you see the results and the evidence, even of psychedelics, what happens when you introduce things like that and the incredible, I mean, there's so much going on with that right now. My listeners may not even be aware. I'm sure that people are starting to hear that. I used to be really kind of against psychedelics, and now I've done so much study and so much research and my own, research, and seen the benefits of that and how incredible it can be when you open your mind to something that, in the next couple of years, this is just, it's going to basically, I think, destroy the medical industry because of the power that it has to free people from, all these mental issues and all these challenges, where we can raise up our frequency and live in a much more dialed in space.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So the lion's mane thing is really interesting. What other mushrooms can you touch on right now to educate us?
There's another really good one. So specifically for aging, it's cordyceps, which increases ATP on the mitochondrial level. So mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. So that's what creates energy. That's the substation. That's the coal plants, the power plants. And so there's a mechanism by which this mushroom stimulates this power plant in the cell. So it's not caffeine-based energy. It's internal cellular energy, which is the most efficient. This is what our body uses as a currency. And it's in our muscles, it's in our bones, it's our nerves, like it's everywhere. It's in every cell. So you can stimulate the production of this by taking this mushroom. The best way to take that mushroom, so lion's mane, just to clarify a little bit, lion's mane can be eaten as a powder, it can be taken as a tincture, it can be taken as a tea, you can run it through a hot water process. And it can also be eaten raw, or not raw, but cooked. And so there's many different ways to prepare that mushroom for its bioavailability, so for its assimilation into the body. Cordyceps, on the other hand, is more of what we call a medicinal mushroom, in the sense of it has to go through some kind of hot water process or extraction process. You don't cook. It's not a culinary mushroom. You don't cook with it. You can make a broth with it. And so like if you do like a sachet, or like if you're making like soup or stock or something, and you make a little tea bag, like with rosemary and like, whatever your herbs are, right? If you're doing a stock, you can put some cordyceps in there and steep it in the stock, and then you can extract the compounds that way. But that one has to be extracted for its optimum bioavailability, for its optimum intake through the body. And so we're talking about energy through the body's internal powerhouse system. So not caffeine-based energy, internal energy. And then also VO2 max. So actually, VO2 max is the biggest indicator for longevity of health. So the higher VO2 max, the more oxygen you can store in your muscles and in your blood, the longer you will live. Straight up. That's powerful. Yes. And how do you sell the cordyceps? I'm just going to put your website up here. Yeah. And I brought some stuff. We can I'll hold it up to the camera. Let me see here. Here it is, right here. So
let's see the products. Oh, with the back. Okay, that right there is good. What's that one called?
This is cordyceps. We call it the dual extract because we take it through an alcohol extraction, which pulls out the fat soluble compounds, and then we take it through a water extraction, which pulls out the water soluble compounds. So you got the different bioavailability in there for optimum absorption, optimum extraction, and you can take that under your tongue. That's the most efficient way to get the mushrooms into your system, is to take it sublingually, because you have all these receptors in your mouth. And especially if we're talking about fat soluble compounds, we create this enzyme in our mouth called lipase. So that's what helps break down fat and absorb fat. We don't actually absorb a lot of fat through our stomach. It's actually through our saliva that we create. So the longer you hold it in your mouth, the more you're going to uptake that. And I usually tell people like, minute to 2 minutes. If you're like a diehard, if you're like really into it, you're like, okay, 5-10 minutes, I'm going to try and hold it. And you'll actually you'll start producing a lot of saliva, which is producing the enzyme, which helps absorb the medicine. And you can also take it.
I've not been doing that long enough. I got to go longer. I think I was doing like 30 seconds, maybe not even. All right.
Yeah.
Good to know. And
anything is better than that. That's
exactly.
cordyceps.
Cordyceps. And then what are the other ones that you have? Because I want to make sure that people know what the products are and know which ones would benefit them.
Yeah. So another really good one is turkey tail. That one's really beneficial for the gut. And going back to Alzheimer's, there now some research is suggesting that Alzheimer's is actually type 3 diabetes. So
I was going to say that. You stole my line. Yeah. So hello, let's get off the sugar. First of all, right?
So turkey tail, great at regulating blood sugar and regulating just homeostasis in the body. So balance of hormones and inflammation in the body.
That's great.
And it's got these polysaccharides in it, which are these long chain sugars, which help to slow down the absorption of sugar, right? Because we need sugar in our body, but we can get it. Well, the best sugar comes from these long chain sugars, and you can get those through this mushroom. And they actually make this mushroom into a pharmaceutical. They take the actual mushroom, they turn it into a pharmaceutical in Japan. It's called Crestin with a K, Krestin. It's the top 3 prescribed pharmaceutical in Japan. Japan has the lowest rates, if not some of the lowest rates of cancer in the industrialized world. Part of that's due to other lifestyle factors, like they have a lot of walking in their lifestyle. But turkey tail is a huge component of their medical routine.
And is that a tincture that you sell?
Yes, that's another one where you have to make that into an extract. A lot of people make a tea out of that one. It's very mild. It's got a really kind of like almost sweet flavor because of those sugars in there, those long chain sugars. So it almost has a sweet flavor. Really good for tea. I like to do crock pot tea with that one. So I'll actually leave it on the crock pot for like a day on high, let it come up to temp, and then I'll cool it down. I'll put it on low or keep warm, and then I'll ladle it into a cup until it's gone, and then I'll add fresh water back in, and then you can keep steeping that. There's stories in Asia of people doing this for months, even years, with the same mushroom, or they just add some more mushrooms to the pot. They just keep it going. So that one's really cool. And turkey tail is super accessible. Actually, we grow. It's not easily cultivated indoors, but it's easily foraged in the wild. So everywhere in America, almost everywhere in the world, exists turkey tail mushrooms. Which, if we're talking about frequency, we're talking about health. That's kind of interesting. That's almost like nature kind of giving us the keys. Like, hey guys, like I made this for you. Take it. It's in abundance. There's a whole lot of it everywhere. So that's a sign, right? That's an indication that like, oh wow, okay. Absolutely. Yeah, and that one's really easy to spot in the wild. It literally looks like a turkey's tail. So the Latin name is Tripes versicolor. You can find it on deadwood, which exists in every single forest. So all you would have to do is take a trip up to the woods somewhere, and you would probably find it.
Yeah, or you can go on Nick's website in the left-hand corner with a little QR code. So if you just scroll over that, you'll get the Tribe Mycelium website, and you can look for all these products that he talks about and connect with him to ask questions to find out what would be the best protocol for you. I know we're doing the powder. I'm doing the powder and the shakes. And I have to say, I'm very sensitive to tinctures because I can't stand when things taste terrible. Yeah. I usually won't take them if they're going to gross me out.
Yeah.
But these I do not have a problem with at all. I think
Oh,
they
good.
actually, yeah, they don't bother me at all. So that was one of my concerns when I bought them from you. I'm like, what, do they taste nasty? Because a lot of times tincture, especially vitamin tinctures, can be really
Yeah.
nasty. But these are not. They're mild. I feel like I get a little uptick in energy just from taking them. And I don't know, I feel good. I feel like I'm doing something really good for my body, for my future, for my mind. And
Yeah.
I think that that is a huge selling point, especially with all the different things that people are going through. We didn't even talk about cancer. And I know that the guy, Paul, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that he had like an 85-year-old mother, 86-year-old mother who had gotten diagnosed with basically stage 4 cancer. And they didn't want to go through the chemo treatments, which I'm talking to so many people right now. I actually just talked to a gentleman the other day whose mom went through a very invasive surgery. She was 76 years old and talked the doctors into doing it because they would only do it with people under 70, and they basically cut you from here all the way down and they remove all the cancer out of your body. So they did this for her. And what ended up happening like 6 months later, there was a particular cancer that this stuff doesn't address. So this poor woman went through this whole process and she ended up dying from cancer like 7 months later. So he ended up doing this with his mom and giving her this mushroom protocol. And
Yeah.
he cured her. She's still alive, I think, right?
No, she did end up passing.
She did.
But they gave her like a 3 month window, and she ended up living for 4 years or something
Wow.
like that.
Without chemo, without
Right.
radiation, without
Exactly.
surgery, without
Yes.
things that are
Yes.
like make the rest of your life
Right.
horrible, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
that's the sad thing about the Western medicine lens is, especially when it comes to cancer, the automatic protocol is just to do radiation, and you're
There's so much of it.
you're
Yep.
putting a carpet bomb on your entire immune system. So you're
And
just
there's
new.
so many people, yes, so many people that get this repeat cancer.
Yeah,
It's like if you have it, you're going to get it again.
right. And going back to vibration, so if you're stressed out because you got to go to radiation, now you just made yourself more sick. You
Yeah.
introduced more cortisol, which introduced more inflammation, which introduced
Yep.
more stress, and now that ripples out to your family and your friends, and now they're stressed and they're worried about you, and now you're
Yeah.
like, oh man, so like the whole conversation changes instead of being like, you know what, this is going to be okay. I'm going to continue to live my life of how I want to live. I don't want, and it's that's up to everyone's personal choice.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
But we have evidence of certain modalities, diet changes, lifestyle changes, adding mushrooms, and people live a higher quality of life. And
Yeah.
that's on everyone to ask themselves that question, like, okay, well, what do I want out of this? Um,
Yeah.
and I would say for the people that are doing radiation, turkey tail is still a great option. And I've talked to a couple different medical professionals about this. In fact, we have a close friend of mine. He's another contractor. Funny enough, he's in the trades, and he has been diagnosed with a super rare form of cancer. And it's
Oh,
so
wow.
rare that the Mayo Clinic, which is a top medical hospital
Yep.
in the U.S., maybe even in the world, they agreed to take him on as a case study. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna hit you with some of these different drugs, these radiation, and I said, well, take this turkey tail to your doctor and ask her about it. I guarantee she knows about it. And he
Yep.
and he came back and he's like, yeah, actually she did. She recommended it in between chemo because in order to do the next round of chemo, you have to get your immune system back up. So they kill your immune
Right.
system, and in order to do the next round, you have to get it back up because if you do it again right away, you will literally die.
Yeah.
So they do it in between rounds,
Yep.
and it brings your levels back up. And he's in his first or second round. So now he had to wait for his third round. So I'm like, hey, listen,
Yep.
take this. And he's an old school guy, so he wants to just check with his doctor first, which I can totally appreciate and respect.
Yep. Yep.
But the doctor was like, yeah, take this stuff in between. So the doctor gave him the approval to take this stuff in
Yep.
between rounds to get
Wow.
his hormones and his levels back up so that he can
Yep.
go back into the next round. And because
Yep.
if you can't get on a consistent cycle with your chemo, then you have to wait in between rounds. The longer you wait, the more at risk you are if you're going on that protocol.
Yeah.
So even if the people that do want to do radiation, I recommend turkey tail in between rounds, because it's going to allow you to get back into radiation, and the quicker you can zap that stuff, the clearer of mind you'll have too. Because again, we're talking about vibration. If you're in this low, oh man, like now I'm bummed out because I can't get back into radiation because my levels are low because they're freaking zapping with this stuff anyway. And now all of a sudden you're like, okay, cool. Like, well, I'm going to take this mushroom and this is going to get my levels back up. So I can't, so everything's good, you know? And like, you just go into
so
it with
that's
a clear
the signal.
mind.
That's the signal that you're sending, and then your body can respond to that. Your body can calm down, your nervous system calms down, and then things actually start to heal.
Yeah, because cancer cannot live in a high vibrational state.
No. And that's a really, can you say that one more time?
Cancer cannot survive in a high vibrational state.
And that's, you know, that's why I promote meditation so much. And I promote this way of living where we're actually have some sort of control over what we're focusing on and what we're allowing our thoughts to do. And if we don't do that, you know, if we're just living through default and just taking on stressors and, you know, resentments and all this emotional baggage, then, you know, the people that I know that have been hit the hardest with cancer, they have resentments, they have anger towards people. And I'm like, that's exactly why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, because it's like
on stuff.
Yeah, it's like negative emotion is the cancer to the body, right?
Bingo. Have you heard of the book The Body Keeps the Score?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I've never read it actually, but I actually was thinking about it the other day. So that's confirmation that I need to read it. Yeah.
Yep. A lot of good research in there. Yeah. So we got lion's mane, we got turkey tail, we got cordyceps. Another really good one's reishi. Reishi is this red mushroom. It's gorgeous. It's almost got this lacquer finish on it, like you stained it. It's great for cleaning out the blood, promoting good cardiovascular health, promoting good circulation. Which again, if we're talking about cleaning the body out, that means we got to move everything around here, all the different cells, and everything has to talk to each other and move. So that's a really good one. And we sell that one as well. Yeah, we sell that in the tincture. And we also sell that. We just came out with this new tea that blends the cordyceps and the reishi together. We call it the Rising Phoenix. So,
I like that.
Yeah. So we got cordyceps, which stimulates a little bit of energy and has some oxygenating properties into it, which again, oxygen, great indicator for longevity of health. And then you got the reishi in there to help promote good blood health, good cardiovascular system movement, adrenals. They also have some polysaccharides in there, some different compounds that only that mushroom creates that we have just been designed to receive. So that's a good cocktail of mushrooms right there. You got lion's mane, turkey tail, reishi, cordyceps, all heavy hitters. Lion's mane being one of the more popular ones in the trends for health conscious foods. It has a lot of bioavailability, so that's why you're going to see it more often. The reishi, cordyceps, turkey tail, you gotta break those down. You got to use those in some way. It's not just like a grab and go. There are companies that do that, but you got to be careful with where these mushrooms are coming from, because
that was literally going to be my next question to you.
Yeah,
because people are going to go and they're going to order this. They're going to order this stuff on Amazon. So talk a little bit about the process that you have and what makes it better than maybe some of these other companies that we're seeing on Instagram or Amazon or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have found that majority of the mushrooms on the market, whether it be Amazon, even Sprouts and Whole Foods and some of your favorite retailers, they are using what's called the mycelium, which is in our name. And we chose that name because it's the vegetative body. It's the root structure of the mushroom. And that was our mission when we started this company, is like, we wanted to connect everybody. We wanted to be the root structure of this mushroom. So it's just in our name, but we only grow the
Yep.
mushroom out into what's called the fruiting body. So you'll hear that in some companies will illustrate that. They'll say, okay, we only use the fruiting body. And what that means is that's the reproductive, it's actually the reproductive organ of the mycelium. So mycelium is the vegetative body, and the mushroom is actually the reproductive organ. So that's what sends out the seeds or spores to create the next life cycle. So going back to sourcing mushrooms, it's much easier to grow the mushrooms or the mycelium in the vegetative state, which there's not a lot of research on what compounds are found in the vegetative state. And then there's not a lot of research or regulation. There's no regulations actually on what is an actual mushroom. So some companies, in fact, a lot of companies are labeling their product as a mushroom when in fact it's the mycelium. And there's not a lot of research on the mycelium part of the mushroom. So, and then to add insult to injury on not having regulated market dynamics, we have China and other countries in Asia producing 90 to 98% of the world's mushrooms, because that's who eats most of the world's mushrooms. Not China eats 99% of the world's mushrooms. America only eats 1%. I shouldn't say China eats 99%. But so America only eats 1% of the world's mushrooms, and most of the mushrooms that we eat come from China. China has even less regulations on agricultural practices, so you don't know what the mushrooms are growing on, whether they're mycelium, and mushrooms, funny enough, will take any kind of waste product and turn it into a food source. So you could be growing them on plastic, you could be growing them on, like you name it. I don't even want to get into it, but like really gross stuff.
Yeah.
So there's no regulation, there's no oversight. The USDA doesn't even want to touch this stuff. They're like, you know what? They just want to bury their head in the sand because it's too much for them to get into. And mushrooms aren't that big in America yet. So like, why are they going to devote resources into regulating a product? I mean, it's a federal agency, so they don't. Their hands are tied. They're already spread thin. And the problem is that the American consumer is the one who suffers because they think that they're getting this great health conscious product, but in fact, it's just got this sexy label on it, and it's coming from China. And I mean, you see that all over Amazon. You see that at Walmart. You see that, and go to any retailer and look, read the fine print, and you'll find out like, oh wow, like this isn't an American made product. It may be processed or designed in America. It may be packaged and labeled and marketed in America, but it's not grown there. And speaking of vibration, it's positivity in, positivity out. So if you got a bad starting product and you start slapping all these sexy labels on it, well, it's still going to be, you've got a bad start. It's still going to be a bad finish. Right. So it doesn't matter what you end up, you think you're getting. And unfortunately, there's not enough vetting. And so small mushroom companies like us, we make it a point to illustrate all of our practices online. If you go to any of our social media accounts, you will find that we show every bit of step of the process along the way. How we grow it, how we process it, how we package it, how we sell it. All of that is up for grabs on our website and on our social media. We go behind the scenes. We make it a point to take people and we do tours like we did with you, right? You got to see how the mushrooms are made. I mean, your granddaughter was there with us packaging and filling the mushrooms so that we could grow them, right? So it's
you have quite an operation over there. That's for sure. I was very impressed. Yeah, that's amazing. I put your Instagram up on the left-hand side. The QR code should bring up your Instagram. And I forgot to do your TikTok. Can you just share what your TikTok is?
Yes, our TikTok is Tribe Mycelium PHX.
Okay, so they can find you there. And then your website, I'll put that back up before we end because I want people to be able to reach out to you and start using these products and see how you do. I mean, I feel like all of us with all of the overload of, we're hearing this all over the place, the toxins in our food, the toxins in our products. Like we've been doing a complete overhaul the last probably 2 years and just realizing how many companies are even just greenwashing where they're saying that their products are good. And then you start looking into the ingredients and you're like, that actually sounds really awful. So, vetting which products actually are what they say they are and
Mm-hmm.
are in fact non-toxic, not just a label on the front, is really important for people to be educated about. So I want people to be able to go to your website because I'm on all the things, and I feel really great. I definitely feel like, I don't know, I just feel charged up. Like that's the way I explain it to all my friends that
Yeah.
I've, with. I just feel like
You're
every
vibrating at a
day
higher frequency.
and I already do. And this is a really interesting thing. I went to my doctor recently. I got some blood work done. I'm doing all the panels to make sure that I'm healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "Wow, your serotonin levels are like nothing." And I was like, "That's crazy," because I walk around like I'm on top of the world most days. So
Interesting.
I'm like, okay, mushrooms are overcompensating. Mushrooms, I credit mushrooms, meditation, and mind training because I can train my mind not to be in a lower frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that is really, so I'm going to share this with my doctor because I feel like I mean, she has evidence of it that obviously, even with serotonin levels that are not really high, and
Yes.
now I'm on supplements for that, but holy cow, right?
Yeah. And I wanted to
Yeah.
go back. We're doing a case
Yeah.
study with our cordyceps tincture and testosterone. So one of our business partners,
Nice.
he's 55-year-old, active male, so he's healthy. He has very healthy lifestyle choices. He has
Yep.
been for his whole life, and he recently started doing 200 milligrams of testosterone from the clinic a month. And
Yep.
the doctor was like, "Yeah, you should be testing around 800, 1,000." And a couple months ago, he went in after taking our cordyceps. He started adding our cordyceps like 6 months ago. He's been on this for about a year and a half. And the doctor called him, the head of the clinic. They run like 7 clinics here in the Valley. The head of the
Yep.
clinic called my business partner and was like, "Hey, what are you doing differently besides just the testosterone that we're giving you?" And my business partner was like, "Oh, why?" Well, because your levels are over, they're literally past the range that we test for. They're over 1,500. He's testing over
Wow.
1,500 testosterone, which is adding to
Wow.
his health and longevity and strength
Yep.
and his energy.
Yep.
And so now the doctor is sponsoring a case study with testosterone and
That's awesome.
cordyceps
That's
because
awesome.
this is something natural that can stimulate testosterone on in the body, and it finds out
Yeah.
that there happens to be a lot of empirical data to support this research that
That's great.
cordyceps increases testosterone, free testosterone in the body. And so now we're
Yep.
doing we are inviting our network of people that use cordyceps to jump onto the study. So all they have to do is get their blood work done as a
No way.
baseline before they start taking
Yep.
cordyceps, and then start doing it.
Yep.
And then they sign a little release form, a consent form for their, provide us their
Okay.
medical records. We'll make it
Yep.
anonymized. And then the doctor is going to take that and type it up into a study, and we're going to shop that around because there's a whole demographic of people that cannot take testosterone intramuscular.
Yes.
They cannot take it through a needle.
Yep. Yep.
And then the other part of it is
Or
testosterone.
they're afraid to take it. Yeah, and they're or expensive too, or they're afraid to take it because there has been, studies done and people have gotten cancer and things like that. So
Yep.
it's like
And
so
there's a
I
chance that
actually
your
have
body will get used to it. There's a chance that
yeah,
once you start it, you
yeah,
can't stop.
you got to keep increasing it. We only have a couple of minutes left, but if people want to be part of that study, can they just reach out to you on your website?
Yep, they can reach out to the website, Instagram. We're working with a lot of amateur athletes right now. So yeah, we would encourage people to reach out. Yeah, if they want to get a part of that. And it doesn't matter the demographic you're in. It doesn't matter if you're active, if you're not active. We want to try it out. So yeah, reach out to us.
There's so many more products that I need to purchase. I'm almost on all of them, but I'm like, okay, I need to get Michael on some of them, especially for the heart stuff. He just went through the test, and his dad had a heart attack at a young age. And in his industry, construction guys tend to have heart attacks. So we've been really dialed into health and getting our blood panels done and making sure that, we're going to stay really clean and healthy and strong and, for a very long time. So I'm going to talk to you about getting him on a few of those things. But this has been so informative. I feel like people are going to need to watch this show more than once, or at least go to your website, go to your Instagram, go to your TikTok, watch what you're doing and take part in the revolution, because this is a revolution that's going to change our entire health industry. I really believe that with all of my heart. And I'm just excited to be a part of it and excited to know about it. And definitely excited that I got to meet you and you become such a integral part of our family so quickly. So thank you so much for being
Thank you,
here.
Golden. Thank you. Thank you for having us. Yeah, talking about being present in the moment, I feel like that 56 minutes just blew right by. Like, I'm like, well,
Yes,
we
I
can go
told
for
you it
another
was so.
56 and not even blink. It's like, that was wild.
Well,
We
I
didn't
will
even,
definitely, yes. I'll have you back on for sure. We'll have to do
yeah,
this
let's,
again.
let's give your viewers some time to digest, and then maybe they can give you
Yes.
some, get you some
Yeah,
questions. We can kind of, fine tune it or whatever. And
that
yeah,
would be
thank you.
fun.
Thank you
Would
again.
love
It's been
that.
great.
Yeah. All right, you guys. That's the end of our show. Peace.